So I've been planning on building my wife a new dining table for almost a year now. I actually picked up these cottonwood slabs from my friends over at Vintage Reclaimed Lumber in Oklahoma City last October, and they sat in my shop until January of this year. Speaking of my shop, you're gonna see me building this table in 3 different shops over the course of 8 months. And to say that this has been a crazy year is an understatement. Since January, I've started a new business, had to move shops, that business then fell apart, and I had to move shops again. And this is mostly why it took me 8 months to finally complete this table. I'm gonna tell you guys all about what happened some other time, but now I wanna show you how this glass river table came to be. Okay, I'm having a real tough time figuring out what configuration I want to go with on these slabs. So I think what I'm going to do is rip a couple 2x4s and build a frame that's the same size as what the final dimension of the table is going to be. Then I can use that frame to kind of plan out exactly how I want this to look. After spending an evening to think about it and to sleep on it, this is what I've settled on for that final layout. Check it out. So as you can see, these slabs are from the same tree, and the design I've settled on actually has them laying side by side in the same configuration. You can see there's a chainsaw mark there, and there's the other chainsaw mark in the next slab. But I really think that river design looks super cool, super unique. And I like the idea of having the little leg kick out so I can have the glass wrap around this side. I think that's gonna look really cool. Probably do some bow ties down here on the end in that crack. I want my table to finish at 42 inches wide and 8 feet long, so I get the most out of those long slabs, and because I need a bigger table to fit into our formal dining room of our new house. I'm using my track saw to cut off the ends, but these slabs were almost 3 inches thick, so I have to come back with a handsaw and finish those cuts. All right, I just brought my slab up here to Glazing Concepts. It's a glass place here in Oklahoma City. Well, they're gonna take the table that I made, make a template, and then cut it on their water jet. So we're actually gonna be able to get some footage whenever they do that. But right there, Glazing Concepts, Oklahoma City, and I'm super excited to see how it's gonna turn out. Now on to building the table base, and like I mentioned earlier, this is shop number 2 of the 3 shops I worked in this year. I wanted a steel table base for this glass river table, but I also wanted something that was inspired a bit by Nakashima's live edge table bases. Now this is definitely not a Nakashima style table base, I'm not saying that, but I did borrow from some of that Japanese woodworking style and some of that mid-century modern style of his work to come up with this tapered leg design and what looks to be a through tenon on the lower stretcher. Now, I recently picked up this Forney 220 multi-process welder that does MIG, it does TIG, and it does stick. I'm gonna be MIG welding these bases, and I love how easy it is to dial in those precise settings that I need for this 1/8 inch thick steel. Also, welding with 220 volt power versus my old 110 machine is night and day different. You just get better welds and better penetration with a 220 machine like this Forney, and I'll leave a link for the one that I'm using down below. Okay, I'm back at Glazing Concepts where they're gonna cut that 1/4-inch blue tinted glass on this water jet machine. Now this is an absolutely fascinating process to witness. I've actually never seen a water jet in action, and a machine like this can cut through that glass and even thicker plates of steel and other materials. Again, being only a 1/4-inch thick, this glass has some flex to it, so the guys have to be super careful getting it off the water jet. Now, unfortunately, this was the thickest blue glass I could get, but it actually worked really well for my needs. I did have these guys deliver the glass to my house directly, so I didn't have to run the risk of transporting it in my truck, breaking it myself, and having to pay for another one. And if you're wondering, this glass costs just under $500 to have it cut and delivered. Okay, fast forward to this August and I'm in my third and hopefully my final shop of the year. And like I mentioned before, I'm working with the Home Depot and I was partnered up with Husky Tools. And one of my favorites is this adjustable height 2-drawer work table that I use as a material cart. I use it as a workbench and it's my main outfeed table. It's actually pretty inexpensive compared to other workbenches. And I'll have links for all these Husky products that are available at Home Depot down below. I'm also gonna fill some of the smaller cracks and knot holes with some Total Boat epoxy, and past experience has taught me to seal the surface before pouring any epoxy to prevent staining, and especially working with a light wood and black epoxy, so I'm using this Total Boat Gleam. I made a little dam out of a piece of cardboard and then covered that up in Tyvek tape, and this is gonna block off the end of this void. I also added Tyvek tape to the bottom where any epoxy might flow out of a crack or a knot hole, and I'm happy to report I actually had 0 leaks in this pour, and that's probably a first for me. It's also super hot in my shop, so I've set up an epoxy pouring workstation in my air-conditioned, climate-controlled office to do all of my pours. Here I'm using this Total Boat High Performance 2-to-1 epoxy and mixing in a black dispersion pigment, and then also some of this Sapphire Ghost Blue, which is gonna give it a super subtle blue shimmer when you're looking at it and the light hits it just right. This is one of those details that most people aren't gonna notice, but if you do notice, it looks really, really nice.
All right, it's time to address the large check and that chainsaw defect. And I'm gonna do that by doing some bow tie inlays. Now, I've never done bow tie inlays before, but I do have a secret weapon. I picked up this Rockler bow tie inlay kit. It's really awesome. I did some testing off camera. You've got the main template, and then you've got a bunch of these different shapes and sizes that slot down into that main template. I think I'm ready to go ahead and do it on the tabletop. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but let's go ahead and dive in.
I was also able to pick up some wood blanks from Rockler so I could have some unique wood species to make the bow ties out of. And there was a lot to choose from on the website. They had purple heart and zebra wood and a bunch of others. But I went with this wenge since I thought it had a really great contrast to the lightness of those cottonwood slabs. Now the process for routing the bow ties is very similar to creating the pockets, only this time I remove that collar, and then you have to be much more careful that the collar stays firmly up against the edge of the template while you cut that piece out. So when I got my glass cut over at Glazing Concepts, they also created this masonite form that's an exact match to the glass. And I decided to use this as my router template versus using the glass, so I didn't run the risk of scratching the glass and having to get a new piece made. Again, it's super expensive to do that. Now the downside to using the masonite, it's only an 1/8 inch thick versus the 1/4 inch glass, so there isn't much room for the template bit to reference on while you're cutting. And here these videos are really sped up, but I promise you I went super slow routing that first edge, and it came out pretty good. Okay, with the ledge for the glass all finished, I could start sanding through the grit starting at 80 and working my way up through 220 grit. Now I like to use the pencil method where I draw lines on the tabletop, and once I've sanded completely through those pencil marks, I know I can move on to the next grit, and I did this with each successive new sandpaper grit. I turn my attention back to the table base where I still need to fabricate those tabs that will allow me to attach the tabletop to the base. Again, I'm using my Forney 220 multi-process welder and fixturing the workpiece so it stays nice and flat as I weld. I also picked up this little spray booth tint off Amazon, and after cleaning up the steel with some degreaser, I sprayed on a white primer coat and then came back and added finish coats of a matte black. Now, using the matte black ended up being kind of pointless because the matte clear that I used to cover up the matte black left it looking really chalky, and I had to repaint and finish with a more high luster clear coat. But either way, it still looks really good in my opinion. Now, because I don't want to transport the glass at all, I had to pick up the slabs and bring them back to the house where Katie helped me lay the glass in place. I had removed those temporary battens that I was using to hold the two slabs in place, and this allowed me to position the slabs in their final spot where the glass fits snugly between them and bring the whole thing back to the shop again. I used my track saw to cut off that excess that was left when I cut the slabs down the first time, and this brought the table to its final dimensions of 42 inches wide and 8 feet long. Katie came out to the shop and helped me flip the slabs up onto the workbench and then place the table base so I could mark the locations where I needed to install threaded inserts. I'm using a light to identify and then sand any scratches that I may have missed or any defects from moving these slabs back and forth so many times. Here I use my block plane to add a slight chamfer to the edges and then clean that up with my sander. So I went back to my old favorite finish of Odie's oil for the tabletop, which really brings out that figure and the chatoyance of these cottonwood slabs. Cottonwood is one of those underrated, absolutely beautiful woods, but it's not commonly used for tabletops. It's actually a member of the poplar family and grows very rapidly, meaning that the wood is softer than most other hardwoods. Now, that said, my friends over at Vintage Reclaimed Lumber have used cottonwood for many tabletops with really good success. And because I'm using Odie's oil as a finish, that means I can come back and easily sand and refinish the table if I ever need to. I'm finally able to bring this table into our new house and assemble it in our dining room where it will live for years to come and be used for birthdays and holidays, family gatherings, and even more often for those normal nights where we just come together as a family and enjoy each other's company. Now, I promised my wife this table a long time ago, and now she gets to see it put together and in our home for the very first time. Keep going, keep going. Okay, don't look yet, don't look. Open your eyes.
Oh my gosh, I love it! What do you think, Bob? We have our new dining room table.
Oh, I know. Finding it. Well, it took me 8 months.
Get it?
I want to say a big thanks to all of you for watching and supporting what I do through this tumultuous last year and beyond. But knowing viewers like you are out there watching and building things and inspiring me, it just kept me going. So I just want to say thanks. And if you're new to the channel and you like what you saw, please get subscribed. Also, drop a comment and let me know what you think about this table as well. I want to give a special thanks to the Home Depot for supporting my channel the last few years. I've been able to build out my absolute Husky dream shop, and I've got links for all those Husky products that you saw in the video down below. As always, thanks for checking this one out, and I'll see you back here next time.